20 years before this has actually happened, and how they feel about the incomplete nature of the proceedings. But others will want to comment on this, and I'm happy for you to do so, because I'm just not sure that I'm the best person to make a judgment. Sorry, yeah.
Yes, it's been 20 years now that Cambodia achieved peace, and I would like to take this opportunity once again, being a Cambodian, and listening to you a few times. This is my maybe third time.
Yeah, same story.
No, I must say this. I think, first of all, throughout your expose just now, I still feel the passion you have for Cambodia. And I think Cambodian people, including myself, must again pay respect to you for being you're honorable. You have done so much for peace and stability in my country, for Cambodia and for the wider world. It's been wonderful hearing what you say about Cambodia, and particularly the part, the glass is still half empty. I really like that, and I subscribe myself completely to that. I have one question related to Cambodia and one related to the region. And I like your view about how you think the situation in Cambodia can be improved. Now, make the other half more completed in short term. Secondly, I like to hear your view on regional politics, particularly the American Philippines. And we need another Cambodia round table. And it's also part of South China Sea issues,
Yeah, look.
Particularly the stationing of the 2,000 Marine.
Well, these are very big questions, as you well know. But I think it's very important to maintain continued pressure on the Hun Sen government, and not just to sort of turn away and say that's life. I mean, through all the instruments that are available, through bilateral discussions, every time we have meetings, whatever our anxiety might be not to offend, there are always ways of, if not publicly, privately, minister to minister, prime minister to prime minister, saying, you guys really ought to think about your reputation, really ought to think about your standing, your credibility, and really perhaps try just a little bit harder to doing this, because the world really is watching you. And there are just ways of doing it which are, not inherently offensive, but which get the message across. That ought to happen. It ought to happen at an ASEAN level. And every now and again, ASEAN gets a little bit more excited about human rights issues, and slowly evolving towards a slightly greater willingness to dip a toe in situations that are going unhappily wrong in other parts of the empire. And that's important to encourage. I mean, there is a human rights regime now, and there's notionally a secretariat that's supposed to be focused on this, and that's important. And it is important the Human Rights Council, which is acquiring some actual feet in Geneva in a way that was rather unanticipated. I mean, another one of my current preoccupations is the situation in Sri Lanka, and the Human Rights Council is really putting the Rajapaksa regime under real international pressure in a way that was long unexpected. So these things are important. I mean, maybe it's just going to require the passing of the years and the Hun Sen. The really tricky point in these situations is when somebody who's acquired that much power, that much authority, that much muscle moves on. Is he going to hand it over to a deputy who, without the same record of achievement or charisma, perhaps, is going to continue the same way, or is that going to be the occasion for a fundamental shift? So that's very important to have, encouragement of the shoulder-level people under Hun Sen, so that when he does move on, you've got the right kind of people that will hopefully be more progressive and more sensitive to these issues. But I don't think there's any way you can bludgeon a solution. I don't think overt sanctions or other forms of pressure of that kind are really going to make much difference, not least since China is being so comfortable a friend and an ally and a financial supporter, and that's obviously not helping on the human rights front. So a long, slow process, and maybe one that's going to have to... But I mean, there really ought to be support for... I mean, Sam Rainsy can be a difficult sort of person to, because of a whole bunch of things in his own history, but opposition leaders are often difficult people. They're often prickly. And leaders of, in authoritarian regimes, of sort of people who have got the guts to stand up to these situations. do have to have particular kinds of personalities, and I think we just have to recognise that. So that's a really tough one, but that's all those things ought to keep happening, and people should keep writing about it, the academics should keep writing about it, journalists should keep writing about it, and not let us pretend that all is well, because it isn't. On the pivot, the US business in Asia and so on, well, a huge story, but look, the bottom line for me is really summarised in a quote that some of you may have heard me use, because I've used it on many occasions. It's something I heard Bill Clinton say at a private function about 10 years ago after he left the presidency. He was never as explicit when he was president, but this was just, I think, pitch perfect what he said. It was that America, he said, has two choices, this is 10 years ago, about how we use our unrivaled, unprecedentedly huge economic and military might. Choice number one is to use that might to try to stay top dog on the global block in perpetuity. Choice number two is to use that unprecedented and massive power to create a world in which we are comfortable living when we are no longer top dog on the global block. And I think that is just perfect. He's never actually said it in precisely those terms, anything I've been able to find in writing. He said something close to it in a speech in Yale a couple of years later. But I think it's exactly right. And what it means is, in an Asian context, where there's all this question about whether America will go on using what I call the DLP words, which will be resonant for some of you in the audience, but dominance, leadership, primacy. Will it keep on using words like that to describe itself and its self-image and its role in the future? Or will it use words like cooperation, consultation, living, B words like balance, and just recognising that there are limits to what American power is going to be able to achieve in the context of rising China, with very clear ideas of its own about the world in which it wants to occupy. So I think it's perfectly possible to imagine US and China finding a modus vivendi in the period ahead. But a lot of it will depend on sort of self-fulfilling dynamics, negative self-fulfilling dynamics. If America behaves like a sort of a frustrated hegemon, then it's going to make it very difficult for others to live with it, because there's so much burgeoning national pride and everything else that is going to make that intolerable for the US to play that role. And for others of us caught up, in this environment, many of the every country in the region really now having a huge economic relationship with China and absolutely not wanting this to deteriorate into a kind of zero-sum game competition. There's some very, very interesting choices, and Australia has got to handle this one very, very carefully indeed. I don't think the Chinese are too spooked by Australia continuing to have an alliance relationship with the United States and continuing to have little tiddly-pom-pom things like the Darwin, marine exchange mobilisation. I mean, this is not going to change the course of geopolitical history in the region. It's far more symbolic than substantial. They know that if it ever comes to a confrontation between China and the US, they know which side Australia is going to be on, and they've sort of grown up about that. So that's not in itself a problem. But at the same time, if we rush around using the kind of language, frankly, we did in that white paper a couple of years ago, which overtly talks about threats and the need to, and if we get involved too overtly in what are seen, not totally unreasonably, as containment-type exercises by joining up with Japan, India, the US, and the so-called quadrilateral, if we do things like this in too overtly confrontational a way, that too will become a self-fulfilling prophecy in terms of making us rather more vulnerable than we might otherwise be. So it'll be a very interesting period to be foreign minister again. Okay, thank you.
We'll have a break for afternoon tea now.
Oh, we've only just had lunch. And I want to listen to Karen before I have to rush off. Can you do Karen and then do a drawing?